What's up guys, Mike here, the Detroit Borg, checking out the brand new HTC 10. This is HTC's flagship smartphone for 2016 and has many of the flagship specs we've come to expect from phones this year and some additional new features that really stand out. Now before we talk about those, let's get to the unboxing. And the box itself is very familiar for HTC. It's kind of this flat style box with a dimpled pattern along the top. And of course along the back we'll find all of our specs highlighted. Let's go ahead and peel off the plastic and lift the lid. And the first thing we will see is our brand new smartphone still wrapped in its plastic. And the plastic does highlight some of the ports and features. Of course, peeling it off, we get a very familiar HTC design, but it has been beefed up here. So HTC is one of my favorite designers in terms of smartphones. So they've done a really nice job with this all aluminum unibody design with this prominent chamfer along the back edge. Really good looking phone. It definitely stands out as one of the best looking phones on the market today. But before we talk about the phone, let's get to the accessories. So getting to the accessories, first thing we need to do here is lift up the tray. And beneath that, we'll find all of our neatly arranged and compartmentalized accessories. So removing that divider, we'll find our power adapter. This is a quick charge 3.0 adapter, which works with a USB Type-C cable included. So it's USB Type-A to USB Type-C to the phone. We also get a packet with paperwork. And on the top of that packet is a SIM ejection tool for your SD card slot and your SIM tray. The paperwork is pretty standard stuff in multiple languages. So getting back to the phone, let's take a close look around. So once again, we have this aluminum unibody design, very typical for HTC, which is separated at the top and bottom with these antenna strips. Now, one of the great things about this phone's design is that there is no text on the back of it, no regulatory information, so it keeps the design very clean. So along the back, we have our 12 megapixel or ultra pixel camera, which does protrude a bit here. They call them ultra pixels because the pixels are a bit larger than standard. They're about 1.55 microns, when most smartphones are around 1.2. So that's able to capture a lot more light and detail without interference. We also get an f1.8 aperture, which is nice and wide. Again, that lets a lot of light in, and we have optical image stabilization, laser assisted autofocusing with a dual tone LED flash. Toward the top and center of the phone is a headphone jack, which does incorporate a 24-bit DAC, which works with Dolby audio processing to deliver really impressive performance, and a lot of this is handled on the software side, and we'll talk about that when we do the walkthrough. Now, there is a plastic trim piece up here, which is used for radio transparency, but gone this time is an infrared blaster, so you can no longer use this phone to control your AV equipment. Along the right side, we have our power and volume rocker. So the power button has a raised texture, which makes it easy to distinguish between that and the volume rocker just above it. Right above that, we have a nano SIM tray. And on the opposite side, we have a micro SD card slot, which supports up to 2 terabytes of storage. And the great thing here is that HTC does support adoptable storage on Android Marshmallow, which is nice to have. Now, my only complaint here is that these trays don't sit quite as flush as some other flagship smartphones. Toward the bottom of the phone, we have a USB Type-C connector, which supports Quick Charge 3.0 for faster charging. We also have a microphone in addition to one of the speakers. So the speaker toward the bottom acts as sort of a subwoofer. It's a lower frequency speaker, while the speaker on the front, or the earpiece speaker, acts as a tweeter. So the combination creates a more fuller, separated sound. So although it's not quite as good sounding as a set of front-facing stereo speakers like the ones from the previous generation, they do sound better than the average speaker. Now, the thing I've noticed here is that the down-facing speaker does most of the work. So if you cover that speaker, it really reduces the sound quality. Also toward the top of the phone are all the ambient light sensors and proximity sensor. We also have an LED notification light, and something that really stands out as a little unusual is this very large ultra pixel camera. This is a 5 ultra pixel camera which delivers 1080p HD video. Now, the unusual thing here is that this is optically stabilized. This is the first front-facing camera to feature optical stabilization. That's fantastic for vlogging or if you're shooting video while walking with your phone. It's a really nice feature to have, and we'll test it out a bit later. Also on the front are the off-screen Android keys, and toward the center is a home button, which is also a fingerprint scanner. Now, this is a capacitive button. There is no physical click here, so you just tap it in order to use the fingerprint scanner or to go back to the home screen. Of course, on either side, we have our back and recent apps buttons, which are backlit. We also get a 5.2-inch Quad HD display, so we have a lot of resolution here, 565 pixels per inch. It's using a Super LCD5 panel, so we have more vibrant colors than the previous generation, and it's a bit brighter with deeper blacks, but it's still an LCD display, so it's not quite as stunning as a Super AMOLED display with those deep blacks and more vibrant colors. It's not quite as bright as I would like to see compared to something like an iPhone, but you have a lot more resolution than an iPhone. So generally speaking, this is a really good looking display with a nice even backlight, and it is covered in Corning Gorilla Glass 4, so it should be fairly durable. In terms of specs, this phone comes pretty loaded. We have a Snapdragon 820 CPU, an Adreno 530 GPU, 4 gigs of RAM, and 32 gigs of internal storage. So in terms of benchmarks, we're seeing a single core score of around 2400, multi-core score of around 5200. That's pretty impressive results, and that's pretty standard for 2016 flagship smartphones. That's a big improvement over the M9 from last year, which almost doubles the single core score. So this means performance is fantastic on this device, especially since we're running Android 6.0 with a slimmed down version of HTC Sense, which is a little closer to stock Android than before. So overall performance is really smooth and quick. Now in terms of our battery, we have a 3000 milliamp hour battery, which is good for about 5 hours of on-screen time at maximum brightness in my benchmark testing. That is right on target. That's what I hope to see with a phone of this size with this battery. Now in terms of camera quality, with these large pixels, the large aperture, optical image stabilization, and laser assisted autofocusing, we have a really impressive system, and it does deliver really solid results. It's one of the better cameras I've used. So in all lighting conditions, it's able to find focus thanks to laser assisted autofocusing, and with that wide aperture, it lets a lot of light in, which gives us also a really shallow depth of field. So you're able to get those really artistic blurred backgrounds. And because we have all of this light coming into the camera, it's able to find the right exposure for just about any situation. It doesn't overexpose the highlights or underexpose the shadows. Now this camera is really at home in low light situations. It's so sensitive that it's able to actually pick up the stars in a black sky. So I'm really impressed by that. I don't think I've ever seen a phone that can do that. So again, you get a lot of sensitivity without a lot of noise. Now there are some exceptions to this. So if you use any of the HDR functions, you tend to get a lot of color noise, or if you use the flash. So generally speaking, just use the camera's natural ability to capture the right light. Video is also excellent with 4K, and it is stabilized, and it delivers excellent results, and that camera is able to find the right exposure thanks to laser assisted autofocusing. Exposure looks great, color looks great. My only complaint is that autofocusing tends to hunt around, and that's a problem with a shallow depth of field, because that basically means the camera has to focus more frequently. What's up guys, Mike here, the Detroit Borg, testing out the front-facing camera, the HTC 10, which is an ultra-pixel camera, which means it has really large 1.34 micron pixels, which lets a lot of light in. That combines with an f1.8 aperture, which again lets a lot of light in, and you have a good amount of detail and good exposure. Although the problem I seem to have here is that it doesn't do a very good job compensating for backlight. So it's not able to find my face and brighten up the exposure to focus on my face. So that would be a nice improvement. But of course, this is a stabilized camera, so I can get up and walk around, stomp around, and it's completely smooth, which is a big deal if you're really into taking selfie videos. So if you have a vlog or something like that, you can't really beat the HTC 10's front-facing camera. Next up, let's walk through the interface. So this is Android 6.0 with HTC Sense 8 UI on top of it, which is a little closer to stock Android than it was in previous generations. I really like the improvement here. Now there are a few quick launch gestures on the lock screen which are worth pointing out. So if you swipe down twice, this will launch into the camera app. So that's kind of useful to have, so you can quickly launch into the camera. If you swipe up, this will unlock the device, and in this case took me right back to the camera app I just opened. Now if you swipe to the right, this will launch into Blink Feed. Of course, I do have to unlock it here in order to access that. Blink Feed is a news aggregator. This also aggregates all of your social media feeds and calendar events. It's a utility I'll look at in just a moment here. Now if you swipe to the left, this will launch into the home screen. So it takes you directly to the home screen. And of course you can also double tap to wake it up, double tap to put it back to sleep. Now you have to keep in mind that these quick launch gestures aren't on by default. Some of them are there, but some of them are turned off. So if you want to turn them on or turn them off, you have to go to settings, go to your display gestures and buttons setting panel, and go down to motion launch gestures. So you can see we have 5 of them we can scroll through, and you can unpick the ones you want turned off or turned on. Also from the lock screen, you can quickly launch into your favorite apps, and you can change these by going to the home screen and changing the apps that appear in your dock. Now speaking of that fingerprint scanner, you can see it responds really quickly here. This is a capacitive button. There is no mechanical action here. So all I have to do is tap the button to wake it up, tap longer in order to unlock it. So it's not the fastest fingerprint scanner in the world, but it is pretty reliable here. So again, you can see it unlocks. It takes us right to the home screen. Now by default, if you just tap the home button with any finger, this wakes it up. So if you want to turn this off, you can. So what we're going to do is go to settings, go to fingerprint scanner, log in, and then we can go ahead and turn off wake up screen. So once we do that, you can see that when we tap that, it doesn't work. So checking out the home screen, if you swipe all the way to the right, you get to blink feed. This is a feature we've had for quite a few years. You can swipe down to refresh it, but again, it plugs in all of your favorite news stories, your social media feeds, or whatever you have assigned to plug in information. Now you can modify this by going up to highlights, and this will allow us to see all of our Twitter feeds. So if you just want to see your Twitter posts, you can do that. If you just want to see the news stories, again, you can pick on that. Or you can just go to highlight and it aggregates everything according to chronological order. Now you can edit this by going to plus, and you can turn on or turn off certain features. So you can see your calendars plugged in here. You can add Google Plus if you want, or turn off Twitter and that sort of thing. Now if you don't want blink feed at all, you can go to the home screen here, pinch in and out, grab your blink feed page and take it up to remove. So this will turn it off. Now, if you want to add it, just go back to add blink feed and it's back there. You can also set blink feed as your home screen. So just drag it up to set as home. So now when you go to the home screen, it takes you right to blink feed. Of course, I don't want that. So again, I'm going to take my previous home screen and set it as home screen. So that's how you set these pages as home screens. Of course, you can also rearrange them if you want. Also from this screen, we can drag and drop our widgets to any one of our pages. We can also select our apps from here as well, or we can add shortcuts. So shortcuts, there's not a lot of them, but they include things like direct dial, direct message, directions, a shortcut to the Google Maps app, and more. Now Sense 8 really simplifies the drop-down notification shade. It's much closer to stock Android than it was in the previous generation, which is a good thing. I really like it here. So of course, we have quick setting toggles for a flashlight, do not disturb, and more. Again, you have all those settings here. So again, very close to stock Android 6.0. You can tap and hold on these to take you directly to the settings panel if you want. And we have a few features added that we haven't seen before, such as a calculator. Now this is a feature that's coming with Android N, so it's kind of nice to see HTC get a jump on stock Android. Now in terms of these Android keys, we have our home keys. If you tap and hold on it, this will take you to Google Now on tap. So this will scan the screen and then we'll do a search. Of course, you can also jump right to Google Now if you prefer. Now we have our recent apps key, and you can see it's pretty close to stock Android here. There really is no difference. We have a clear all button, and then we have search up top. Now if you tap and hold, this will bring up settings. So for right now, I'm on the home screen. It takes me right to my home screen settings, but if I'm within the Chrome app, I do the same thing. It brings up my settings for the Chrome app. So checking out the app drawer, this is very different from stock Android. So you can see we can scroll through our pages here, but we have lots of other options. So we can search our app drawer if we want. So we can search for whatever app we want, jump right to the Google Play Store to find new apps, which is very handy to have, I think, in an app drawer. You can also rearrange apps. So as you can see, a lot of these apps are in folders, which is nice. So if you want to rearrange apps within the app drawer without taking you back to the home screen, you have to go into this mode, and you can go ahead and drag and drop your apps into new folders or create new folders if you want. But if you look up top here, you can uninstall apps up here as well, or you can hide the app. So if you want to hide the app entirely, hides it from the app drawer and from the home screen, and then we can click done. So that's now invisible. Now if you want to see those apps again, you have to go to show or hide apps. And so you can see the apps that are hidden, and you can uncheck it if you want. You can also change the wallpaper for the app drawer. So we can go to change wallpaper here and select something else. So let's go ahead and select that, click apply, and then we have a specific wallpaper just for the app drawer. You can also change the layout here. So if you want to go with a custom layout, which keeps everything in their folders and wherever you last placed them, but you can also go with alphabetical, which strips them out of their folders and gives you this continuous list view. You can also go with most recent, so whatever was downloaded most recently will be up top. Customization seems to be a big story with the HTC 10 and Sense 8. And to get to it, just tap and hold on the home screen. This takes you to personalize. So we can personalize the home screen layout. So if we go to this, we can go with the classic layout, which is what we have right now, or freestyle layout. So freestyle layout is compatible with only certain themes. So you have to download different themes from their theme store. So with this theme applied, you can see instead of app icons, we now have these stickers, which can be repositioned to anywhere you want. It no longer conforms to a specific grid. So you can rearrange them in a specific way if you want. Now they're basically shortcuts to the app. So this takes you to the phone dialer if you want. Chrome, this takes you to the Chrome browser, and you can modify these. So tap and hold on this, and you can relink this sticker. So if we go to relink, this gives us the option to change the app that the sticker is associated with. So if you want to change it to the Hangouts, you can do that. There's other options here. So we can also have it to hide the label. So if you want to hide the labels, you can do that for that specific sticker. So again, it's just a more fun way of interacting with your home screen instead of a grid of apps. Alternatively, you can also use this theme in the classic layout. So let me go ahead and select classic layout, and there we go. So you have the theme elements like the icons and the wallpaper, but we have our standard app icons instead. You can also edit your current theme. So this allows you to change your wallpaper, your colors, your icons, the weather clock, your ringtones, notification tones, the fonts, and everything like that. So in terms of our settings panel, pretty standard stuff. We do have HTC Connect, which allows us to set up a server for connecting to other devices, like DLNA devices, which can have access to our media files if we want. But if you give it some time, you can see that we have a feature we haven't seen on Android before, and that is AirPlay support. So I can see all my AirPlay devices powered on right now, my Apple TVs in various areas of my house, so I can go ahead and broadcast audio to those devices just by tapping on them. So again, this will connect to those devices and I can stream audio or video. HTC also makes it easy to transfer content from one phone to this phone. So you can transfer from an HTC Android phone, another Android phone, or even an iPhone. So if you have an iPhone, you basically log in with your iCloud backup or your iTunes account. Under display, gestures, and buttons, we have glove mode. So this allows us to use the screen when we're wearing gloved hands. So this is great if you live in a cold environment like I do. We also have our color profile, so we can go with Vivid or sRGB, and then you can modify this under settings as well. In terms of the navigation button backlights, now we have auto off when inactive, so that's what we have right now. But if you want these always on when the display is on, you have that option as well. Personally, I actually like that, especially if you're not used to this layout. Now in terms of audio settings, there's a lot going on here. So we do have HTC Boom Sound with Dolby audio processing. So right now I'm using the internal speakers, so I have music mode and theater mode, and I can toggle between those. Now when I'm playing something, that quickly appears in the drop-down notification sheet, so I can quickly toggle this if I'm using those speakers. Now if you connect a set of headphones, you do get different options here. So I can turn off processing if I don't want it at all, or I can go to settings and I can modify this. So I can go to personal audio profile and I can calibrate my headphones to my ears using this device. So I have two ways of doing this. I can use the quick method, which basically answers a bunch of questions like how old are you, what kind of music do you like to listen to, do you listen to music in a noisy or quiet environment, or I can listen to frequencies, and this will coach me through the frequency scale, and I basically adjust the volume until I can hear the frequency, and once you save that profile, you can basically save it for each set of headphones. Under power, this is where we'll find our power saving modes. So if we tap on this, we can actually modify how this behaves. So this can automatically kick in at certain battery levels. So right now that's set to 15%. We also have extreme power saving mode, which again you can activate from the drop down shade. And you can also modify when this kicks in at certain battery percentages. Next, I want to take a look at the Sense 8 keyboard because it has a lot going on here. Of course, we have tracing, so if you just want to quickly swipe text, you can do that. But if you look up here, let's go ahead and get this out of the way. We have this little icon that gets us to more features. That includes things like our voice keyboard in addition to a split keyboard for thumb typing if you want. You can go back to normal here. And you can see we can swipe between our two pages of options. You can edit, change your language, resize the keyboard. So if you go to resize, you can really maximize the size of the keyboard. You do have a fairly big minimum size. You can also shrink the keyboard from either the left hand or right hand side if you want a handable keyboard, and then you can also move it around, so again, lots of options. You can also theme out this keyboard, so you can download keyboard themes from the theme store, and there are a lot of them which are really vibrant, so if you want something really custom, you can go all out. Now in terms of the camera app, they keep the interface pretty simple here. You can pinch in and out to zoom, and it's really smooth and quick. Tap anywhere to focus. You can see you can adjust exposure manually if you want. Snap your photograph, tap and hold to take a burst shot. And of course, you can also modify whether you want the flash turned on or not, or set to auto mode. We also have HDR, so you can set that to auto or off. Now we can quickly jump between photo and video mode. So when we're in video mode, we can start recording, pinch in and out to zoom. We also have exposure, so if you want to adjust manual exposure, you can do that. Snap a photograph while recording video, pause it, and resume it if you want. Now if you swipe in from the edge, we can get to our modes, and there's quite a few modes to pick from. We have our photo mode, which includes quick access to these toggles for your resolution. So 4x3 at 12 megapixels is the best resolution, but if you want wide, you can go with something lower. We also have our Zoe camera, which records a 3-second video clip alongside the photograph, and when it's recording it, you can see we get the little animation on the shutter release. We also have the Pro mode, and Pro mode gives us manual controls for things like white balance, exposure, ISO levels, aperture, and our focus points. Now when you're in video mode, you can switch between 4K, Full HD, HD, which is 720p, QVGA, and MMS quality. So of course I want 4K. We can also turn on and turn off high-res audio. We also have hyperlapse and slow motion. Slow motion is 120 frames per second at 720p resolution. We also have our selfie, photo, or video cameras in addition to settings. And with settings, we can apply our geotags, we can turn off the shutter sound, turn on our grid. We have camera options here which expand out. So that gives us things like auto smile capture, voice capture, and more. So taking a look at the selfie camera, basically the same features that are available on the back camera are also available here, such as HDR, so you can set this to auto if you want. We have a flash as well, and this will basically flash the screen. You can also tap anywhere on the scene to adjust exposure and focus because we do have a focusing mechanism in here, so you can manually adjust that if you want. Swiping down, we have quick access to our modes such as selfie video and selfie photo, and if you want to jump to other options, you have that option by swiping to the right. Now, if you go to one of these other options like slow motion camera, this actually opens up the back camera and closes the selfie camera. So getting back to selfie, there are a few options here which are worth pointing out. So we have our timer, so if you want a 2-second, 5-second, or 10-second timer, we have that option. And then we have our makeup mode. So this sort of softens the details of your face if it can detect the presence of your face. And then you can also change the intensity of that feature here. So you get a slider that softens greater or less. Now quickly comparing the differences between the M9 and the HTC 10, obviously the big difference here is the display. So we go from a 5-inch 1080p display to a 5.2-inch Quad HD display. The new display is also brighter with more vivid colors with better off-axis viewing angles. We also lose the front-facing stereo speakers and gain off-screen Android keys and the fingerprint scanner. Along the back, we trade a 20 megapixel camera for a 12 ultra pixel camera, so bigger pixels, although there are less of them, and we also gain laser-assisted autofocusing. The headphone jack has also been relocated from the bottom of the phone to the top center. Next up, let's listen to the speaker quality to see if we can tell if there are any differences.
What's up guys, Mike here at the Detroit board, checking out the brand new LG G5. This is LG's flagship smartphone for 2016 and launches with some notable features, including a modular design. This allows us to remove the battery so we can swap out the battery while retaining a metal frame, but we can also attach accessories like a camera grip or even an audio amplifier.
So in my opinion, the M9 does sound better with a wider soundstage and deeper bass response, and you also don't accidentally cover the side speaker on the HTC 10, which can be a problem when you're gaming. So ultimately, I think the HTC 10 really is return to form for HTC. It's a very polished flagship smartphone that gets all the core features right. We have a great design, great display, fantastic camera system, fantastic audio for both the internal speakers in addition to the headphone amp. And they've made significant improvements to HTC Sense 8, which looks much better and performs better than the previous generation. So ultimately, while we don't have a lot of bells and whistles, we have a very polished flagship smartphone that stands out for getting all the basics right. Alright guys, hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up to let me know, and I'll see you again in the next video.